Hello everyone, this is John with ziptopia.org. In this tutorial, we are going to install Kali Linux on an Oracle Virtualbox. In order to do that, we need to first go to virtualbox.org and download our application. So this will be the virtual machine that we will install several operating systems later in other tutorials. This allows us to use just one virtual machine for multiple operating systems. So if you're a Windows user like myself, go here, save link as, and as you can see, I already downloaded to this folder. Now let's go to kali.org to download our Kali Linux. This is an important point. I would like to mention the fact that I used to simply install Kali by using one of these ISO images. But when you do this in a virtual machine, you are not taking advantage of the virtual machine fully. If you do this, it's not going to be any different than installing on a standalone machine. If you scroll down in this site though, here it says the offensive security folks, these guys are the ones who created Kali Linux. They created these images. It's already installed to be used in virtual machine applications like VMware and Virtualbox. So if you look at the documentation regarding this, there will be a few things that you will need to pay attention to, and let's just open them up here before we move on to the installation. This is going to be about the sources list. And now going back to the downloads, based on your machine, either direct download or use a torrent. I use this one because I know it works. As you can see, I downloaded it, and it's a zip file. When you extract it, you are going to get that other file that you can see there. You can also click on extract button to do that, and when you extract that, you'll see these files in that folder. So this is what the Linux component is created with. So it's an important distinction. These are already installed virtual machines, not ISO files that you use to install like a standalone machine. So double click on the VirtualBox. Let's go ahead and install our VirtualBox, and then we'll go back to Kali Linux. The VirtualBox installation is fairly simple and it's pretty short. You can literally just let all the defaults in place, but keep in mind you will lose your network connection just for a second. This just takes a minute or so. The Kali Linux installation will be the one that will take some time. course, this the time it takes will also depend on your machine's performance, machine's specifications. All right, we are now seeing some action. It should create a desktop icon shortly. Right there. As I mentioned, there will be a blip in the network, a short loss of connection, as the warning earlier mentioned. Alright, let's start Virtualbox. This was pretty straightforward. Like I said, you can easily use the defaults to install. Now we have our Virtualbox. This is where we are going to create our virtual machines. Now let's select new, name, let's put Kali, type, it's going to be a Linux box, of course, version. Kali is based on Debian, so let's use Debian. Now here, the memory size, you can change it to, I use 2048. Now here, you can easily create a virtual hard drive or use an existing one. Now, when I was using the ISO images, I had to create a virtual drive. Now, we already have the virtual drives created by the offensive security folks. Here, you select the files that we downloaded and extracted earlier and hit that create button. Again, the important point here is we are not going to install per se. We are simply using the already installed virtual machine. Here, let's look at some configurations here. Well, remove the floppy, remove the DVD drive because we don't need it. Select, enable these options. Display, I just take it up to 128. Enable 3D acceleration. Storage, as you can see, we don't have the DVD and virtual machine is right there. Now the network component is interesting. If you use NAT, it will allow you to have access to internet, provided that your host box really has internet. But it's going to give you a 10.xxx private IP address, and you won't be able to talk to your PC and vice versa. But if you use the bridged adapter here, it's going to give you, it's going to use DHCP to get the same IP, well, similar IP address, the same network that your machine is on. This way you will be able to talk from one virtual machine to another, as well as to the host machine that you are installing all these virtual machines on. Alright, now we started a virtual machine. Let's put that down. As you can see, there is no install option because it's already installed. So we're just going to start the virtual machine. It's going to take a few minutes. As I mentioned earlier, the speed of things will of course depend on the specifications of your machine. And I'm going back to this sources.list as well as the NVIDIA drivers section. Well, those two are the important sections. And I apologize, in the background you can hear my Siberian Husky working on a bottle. Well, so these guest addition tools, you can use them if you want to have shared partitions between your host and your virtual machine. But the important thing is really the sources.list file and the NVIDIA drivers, if you have them. It's a really important topic, actually. I used to simply use whatever I can find on the internet to add to the sources list. This is the list where you are telling Kali Linux to get the packages from when you're upgrading or installing components. I mean, they cannot stress this enough. You must not modify the sources.list file with unofficial entries. So this is where the file is. We are going to open it up once we get an access to our box. And as I mentioned earlier, I used to modify this, and it did break multiple instances of Kali installations. So let's modify the screen a little. Well, we are back to waiting for an access. Now in here, all you need is those two entries there. The NVIDIA drivers, on the other hand, if you have them, it's important to install those. They created this section just to call out the fact that you might have issues with the installation if you have NVIDIA video hardware. Now the host, this host I'm installing Kali on, does not have an NVIDIA driver, so we are just going to use the first two sections here that's relevant. It's talking about updating the system, and that's why we are going to go with those two. Now let me also call out that if you notice, the password here is TOOR. Again, we haven't installed the Kali Linux per se. The guys already had created this virtual machine that we simply used as our base. So even though this takes some time, it's not that long. That's why I'm not stopping the video here. In other tutorials, you'll see that I will stop the video because it takes just too long to install or modify things. Now let's open a terminal. While it's fully booting up. Now in the background, you see the background is transparent, which I don't like. You can keep it that way, but if you want to change it, you go to Profiles and select the solid color. So let's update and upgrade the packages in our Kali installation. Oh, it's going to be, I think I made a slight mistake there. I'm gonna remove that install. Alright, so this will, when you enter, it's going to get an update of the packages available from the sources list I mentioned earlier. Let's take a look at that sources list as I promised earlier. So if you open file system, etc, I think it's apt. Now here, the sources.list. If you open this, you'll see that it's just 2 entries with the security update section. Like I said, I used to modify this and had a lot of issues. You should probably keep this as it is and update and upgrade the distribution accordingly. So when you enter, I mean, the first part of this command will update the packages available for Kali Linux, and once they are done, the next part of the command will upgrade the packages in this distribution. I'm still not going to stop the video here because there's just one little thing you need to do to keep the process going. It's going to ask us if we want to proceed or not. It's going to tell us the size of the files that we'll be installing. Once we give the OK, it's going to start installing them, and then we can fast forward things. So here tells us 129 megabytes additional disk. Just yes and hit enter. Alright, it's time to fast forward things a little. Now the installation, the upgrade is complete. Now let's clean this window a little and take a look at what we have installed in the system, what the size of the components are. As you can see, we have 8.1 gigabyte installed. Now every time you make big changes, every time you install something, you upgrade something, it's a very good idea to create a snapshot. Now the snapshots are very similar to the recovery points in Windows. Here it's gonna, well, let's give it a meaningful name. We installed Kali, updated and upgraded. Now while it's creating the snapshot, let me repeat what I said. Every time you make a big change, big installation, upgrade, it's always a good idea to create a snapshot, because if something goes wrong in the future, you can always go back to the state by using the snapshot. It's fairly fast. Now, once the snapshot is complete, let's put this down. Let's reboot our system. Let's reboot our system to make sure everything is good, everything is able to recover. Now the reboot will also take a few minutes, so I'm going to fast forward a little. Alright, once the system reboots, let's open a terminal and let's change our password from the default to something we desire. We're going to use the passwd command, enter our new password, and once again, and now we have a different password. Now let's figure out how to shut down this computer, this virtual machine, properly. Let's take a look at the options here. So -H will stop the virtual machine, and -P will turn off power, which we both would prefer. And we need to use a time argument, which I'm going to use now for. So shutdown -HP space now will properly shut down this virtual machine. And guys, thank you so much for taking time to watch this tutorial. If you have any questions, comments, or requests for other tutorials, please visit us at ziptopia.org.